What's going on, Grandma? Welcome back for another week. Ooh. All right, Grandma. So, looks like we got a little tradition going on here. So this week in my health class, we were learning about fats, specifically saturated fats and trans fat. There we go. Looks a little bit better. Um, so I know you've heard of these. A lot of people in the public have heard of saturated fats and trans fats. It's just kind of you know what they are and that you know they're not good for you. You don't really know what they look like or maybe what foods they're in or all that kind of stuff. So I kind of want to tell you a little bit about the properties of them and what foods they're in and kind of a little bit about why they're bad. So saturated fats, they are fully hydrogenated. That means all the carbon molecules in there. So fats are made up of a lot of carbon and hydrogen. That's what's in a fat. Um, all of the carbon molecules have hydrogens on them. So um, you can see right here. So this top one right here, this butter right there, that's an example of saturated fatty acid. See how it's solid? That's because it has all of its carbons have hydrogens attached to them. Versus below, you see what's called an unsaturated fat, which means there's a double bond right there. You see that kink? And those kinks prevent the molecules from packing together super tight, um, which means it's going to be a little more liquid. Kind of see that. Um, and so trans fats are unsaturated fats that we through a chemical process we hydrogenate them. So most trans fats they really aren't found naturally in the environment. Sometimes they are in plants and animals, but not typically. Whereas saturated fats are really, there are a lot of animal products, so your dairy, your meats, those are typically found in there. And so saturated and trans fats, they will increase your low density lipoprotein or your LDL. Um, and remember, we kind of talked a little bit about that, where the LDL is your bad cholesterol and your HDL is the good cholesterol. And the LDL, that stands for low density because it has a low density of protein and a high density of fat. Whereas HDL is the opposite, where it's comparatively it's lower density of fat and more protein. And those lipoproteins, I don't know if you remember, we were talking about how proteins they don't dissolve in water, right? I mean, or lipids don't dissolve in water. Remember, I mean, you can think about that with, oil and water don't mix. It forms like a film on the top of the water. And so, if you want to transport, these lipids to all the cells and the tissues in the body, you have to have some sort of molecule that can dissolve in water, which is protein. Protein can dissolve in water. So you attach the lipids or the fats to those proteins so that they can be transported throughout the bloodstream to the different tissues. Because fats aren't cholesterol and fats they're not all bad things. I mean they're used in cell membranes. They're especially used in our neurons. Our neurons have what's called a myelin sheath. It's this outer covering on the neuron that will make the action potential. So the action potential is kind of a fancy word for the signals that are transmitted along those neurons. It makes those signals be sent quicker and quicker. Without the myelin sheath, we wouldn't be able to take in all this sensory information. So, if you were to touch a hot stove, you wouldn't be able to sense it as quickly. And so that could be really dangerous, right? If say a little kid touches a hot stove and it delayed, a half a second longer, they could develop a pretty serious burn, before they would have that reflex to pull it back. So, anyways, that's kind of a little bit about some cholesterol type stuff and the different types of fat. So, remember, LDL is bad, HDL is good, and we want to minimize the amount of saturated fat and trans fats in our diets. So, thank you.